Morning, yoga teachers. It's Aneta Itchak here. Hope you are having a good day. Today, I wanted to talk with you about the question that I get asked a lot, again and again and again. And because we are coming to the start of another cohort of our 80-hour Trauma-informed Yoga and Embodied Resilience teacher training and mentoring course, which starts on the 7th of October, I thought it would be really helpful to just explore that question. And the question is, what is so different about Trauma-informed Yoga and Embodied Resilience teacher training? How is it different to other trainings? There are so many trainings, trauma-informed teacher trainings out there. Loads have been developed over the last couple of years in response to what's been happening in the world, in response to the pandemic, the lockdowns, the level of trauma and people being triggered, in response to the constant sense of being under threat, the level of changes that we had to make in response to the lockdowns, to the pandemic, to COVID, and now this continues in a way of many people, and I've spoken to many people living with the long COVID. So the impact of being ill that lasts much, for months, for some people even longer than that, over a year. So we had to, as yoga teachers, as yoga practitioners, as yoga therapists, as wellness practitioners, we had to adjust how we support our students and our clients. And so today I wanted to share with you the 3 ways that trauma-informed yoga and embodied resilience is different to other courses or maybe other approaches. So the 3 things, like the main 3 things, there might be lots of different little things that are different, but for me the 3 things that are different in trauma-informed yoga and embodied resilience are the 3 things that it brings together. And I'm going to talk about all 3 of them one after the other. So the first one is that it brings the understanding of the trauma, of what trauma is, the nervous system, the polyvagal theory, and the trauma-informed yoga approach. So trauma-informed approach to care and trauma-informed approach to yoga. So that's number 1. The second one is we also bring embodiment and somatic practices, including practice called focusing, which I also call embodied listening, that works with felt senses and parts in the body. There is an introduction to that, as well as somatic self-compassion practices. Those practices are powerful and life-changing. I will talk a little bit more in a moment about it. The third one is the personal transformation that happens over the course of the 12 sessions that we have together. And that is, you can learn about trauma, you can learn about trauma-informed approach, and you can attend courses and you can read all the books that are out there, and there are so many now. I mean, I've got loads of them. I love reading and I love learning. But unless you take it from the mind level to practice, to then, after practicing for quite a while, to embodying it, you're still staying on the mind level. One of the people that talks a lot about this is Bessel van der Kolk, so trauma expert who wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It doesn't matter how many trainings you have. what's important is how you work with your clients, how well you can support your clients, how well you can hold the space for somebody in a safe way to be able to connect with their own experience and shift that inner experience in some kind of way towards more well-being, towards more nervous system regulation at a pace that is right for them. So let's start with the first one. So understanding of trauma and trauma-informed approach. So it comes from really, understanding the definitions of trauma. And we need to understand on the mind level. We need to understand the knowledge part. We need to understand, what is trauma? Because our understanding of trauma has changed over the last 20 years. We used to talk so much about the big T, big trauma. And, certainly the trauma-informed approach comes from understanding, and the research done around adverse childhood experiences, children who have experienced trauma in their early life, like bereavement of a parent or a carer, chronic illness, or sexual abuse, or neglect, or emotional abuse, and how it impacts then on their development, the wiring of the nervous system, the development of their brain, development of their personality, and then how it impacts then on their adult life, the choices that they make, relationships that they have, opportunities that they can accept, the career choices, and work that they choose, or also, how they then try to live with the impact of that trauma, and that is usually through kind of maladaptive ways of coping. It's like through substances, through alcohol, through risky behaviors, all of those that can manifest later in life. And certainly, in my work in social care, this is the group of people that I've worked with. When I worked in a crisis center for 6 years in London, I worked with very chaotic drug users. That was a residential detox place, very unique, very, very amazing place. And I worked there for 6 years. We had about 1,000 people coming through the doors every year. And you could see the trauma. You could see how, some of our clients were in their 40s, 50s, how through the whole of their life, they used certain behaviors, in this case, very risky behavior, substance use, alcohol use, a lot of crime, a lot of violence, and, the consequences, all the consequences that come with it, ending in prison, ending up in prison, ending up in as a homeless person on the streets, with loads of health issues, physical health issues, mental health issues. So you can see, we need to understand the impact of those early childhood experiences on an adult, because sometimes we just see the behavior. Are they difficult, or are they a drug addict, or they but when we start unpicking it, we start understanding, okay, something happened to that person that then leads them to behave like this. Many years later, they still are in this kind of state of feeling under threat, responding to what happened as if it's happening now. And so, I'm talking about extreme kind of situations, but many people have experienced maybe less extreme childhood experiences that are still impacting them. So, understanding that, for example, attachment styles, when somebody, for example, when somebody has got anxious attachment style, they really want to connect, but they can't. And they really want to connect and they can't. And then going, as an adult, how it impacts their relationships with everybody that they come across, including you as a practitioner, as a therapist, as a yoga teacher. So we need to understand this, we need to understand how the nervous system can be primed, how it's conditioned, and how we can help people start orienting more towards well-being, towards more self-regulation, and understanding that it is on this kind of continuum. It's not just like, oh, your nervous system is regulated or it's not. It's understanding that we are always moving on that continuum and identifying practices and things that can really help us to move towards more well-being, towards more stability, towards more self-regulation, towards more connection with others, towards more joy, towards more engagement in life. So, and this is where yoga can play a really great part, because when we bring this understanding of trauma, and when we bring the understanding of trauma-informed approach onto how we teach yoga, we can invite people in a way that that is safe for them, in a way that helps them to develop their own inner sense of agency, in a way that that invites them to, let's explore with curiosity. Let's bring that quality of curiosity and openness. What's here? How can we approach this pose? When we can bring self-compassion, not this kind of pushing and striving to fix and to be better, but actually let's just explore what's possible here. And when we are on our yoga mat, we take away this impact from relationships, from work, and we just are here on the mat, noticing what comes up in response to what we're doing. And so yoga, with its practices, when yoga practices are done in a way that is trauma-informed, and as I said, it's like there is a sense of that collaboration. We invite people to explore. We give people options. We normalize certain responses from within the body, from within our system. We give people permission to work to the level of intensity that is right for them. And, we collaborate with them. There is a lot of consent. And as a result, there is a sense of empowerment. It's like, yeah, I can do that. So one of the ways, for example, that I often do that is, I say to people, the more intense version of this pose is not always better. And you can give yourself permission to do a less intense variation of this pose. This is the more intense variation. This is the less intense variation. Check in what's right for you. It's not that the most advanced pose or the most intense variation is better. It's what's better for you right now in this moment, in response to your needs. What would work better for you? And that's a different approach to, yes, let's, this is the beginner's pose, this is more advanced pose, this is really advanced pose, and let's push you into it, and so you can go deeper. Going deeper sometimes it's not the right thing. Just like it's not always about grounding and relaxing and letting go and softening. Sometimes it's about moving and releasing that energy. And so learning about trauma-informed yoga approach helps you to bring your deeper understanding of what's happening for your students and your clients, and meet them at the level that they are at. And from that space, there is that sense of collaboration. There is a consent. there is an invitation, and then we can move in different direction, in a direction of more stability, more well-being, more connection with self and others, more joy, more engagement in life. So that's number one. It's like really the basis is the understanding of trauma-informed approach and trauma-informed yoga approach. And there is something else that we do, and I already mentioned that. So the second thing is that we bring the embodiment, the embodied part, the embodiment and somatic practices, including focusing. So I call it embodied listening, working with felt senses and parts, and also somatic self-compassion. So we start in the course with exploring mindfulness, and mindfulness has become very popular in the last 15 years. My initial training 12 years ago was as a mindfulness yoga and meditation teacher. And interestingly, I also worked at the crisis center at the same time. And for me, mindfulness is always the initial practice. We always have got to start with awareness. And so mindfulness as an awareness practice is a wonderful practice. It is different from embodiment and somatic practices. The difference is that in mindfulness, we are asked to be with our experience in a neutral and non-judgmental way. Sometimes people talk about it as if you're just watching it, like the clouds passing by. You notice it, you become aware of it, sometimes you name it, but then you let it go. That's different to somatic practices. Somatic practices are almost like a step further. They ask you to go deeper. They ask you to, for example, be aware of your breath, but also sense and experience your breath within. So you go a little bit deeper. You go into a real connection, and that's where, things like somatic movement are really amazing, where that sense of unwinding can start happen from within. Because we are not only aware, not only observing something and being with something, we also are sensing and being the thing. And then when we go deeper into, for example, somatic self-compassion and embodied listening or focusing, you take even a step further to start being much more active with what's happening for you, and being in relationship with something within you, which then takes, goes deeper, and there is that sense of unwinding, there is the sense of meaning, there is a sense of perception shifting, there is a sense of deeper understanding. So if you ever felt like for example, if you ever felt like you read all the self-help books, you've done therapy, you know what the problem is, but yet you keep doing it again and again and again, and you don't seem to, like, it shifted a little bit, but there is something else that is going on that you are unable to shift. That's when we need those other practices. Go deeper into that understanding, because something that is happening below our conscious awareness in this moment. So we need to bring it into conscious awareness, into our understanding, so then it shifts. And then the change happens by itself almost. So this is the difference between trying to make change from outside in, through good advice, through motivation, through habits, through, all of that kind of stuff, rather than from the inside out, through this somatic wisdom of understanding what's happening within us, and then shifting it, something shifts. Often there is a release within the body. Often there is just things feel different. Things feel different. And then the behavior follows from that, rather than the other way, trying to impose the behavior. So then the change happens. It's kind of from within, inside out change. And so embodiment is really important because it allows us to bring this deeper understanding, this deeper connection, this deeper sense of self-compassion, that when we practice it again and again and again, the changes are big. And so that takes me to the third point, which is this process of learning that is so important, that we, there is a 3-step process. That first we learn, we understand the concepts on the mind level. We really get, like, for example, what trauma is, what's the difference between mindfulness and embodiment, what are the certain maps that we use, like for elements or seasons maps, what is it that we what is focusing and embodied listening, what is somatic self-compassion as a practice, what do we, how is it our work, and why is it important? We understand on the mind level, and then we have to take it into practice. And this is why this course is structured over 12 sessions. You can understand all you want on the mind level. You can understand how wonderful of a concept mindfulness or embodiment is, or somatic self-compassion, or, but unless you practice again and again and again and again for yourself first, to have that your own experience of it, and then practice sharing it with others, there is no shift. There is no change. It all stays on the mind level. So the practice, right from the beginning in our training, for example, we start with somatic self-compassion, that somatic checking in. The practice that if you do on a daily basis over the 12 weeks, it will make a huge difference in your own relation with yourself and different parts of yourself, and with the world and with other people. It will change, it will shift, but that takes time. The practice takes time. There is no shortcut. There is no app for it. You cannot skip it. Just like, just like I would not dare to teach you about trauma if I didn't have 22 years of experience of working frontline with thousands of clients and supporting and mentoring frontline workers. I would not dream to teach you about trauma, because I wouldn't know beyond the kind of academic and understanding of what it is to actually hold space for somebody with those practices within yoga, within, it's like, there has to be a lot of practice in there. And only after you've done a lot of practice, you shift from that mind understanding into somatic understanding, into embodied understanding, into, I really feel it in every cell of my body that this practice is life-changing. Like for me, I've been practicing, I learned mindfulness and metta bhavana, so lovingkindness, almost 30 years ago. And at the same time, I started practicing yoga. So for me, those practices were always together. And then later, I trained as a mindfulness yoga and meditation teacher. Those practices were always connected for me. They weren't separate practice. They were all together. And, from mindfulness into embodiment and somatic practices, it was the next step that that naturally developed, but I also, continued my training as an embodiment coach, as a embodiment practitioner, somatic practitioner with somatic movement and embodiment. That learning, and as a focusing practitioner, so as a, it draws you deeper. It sinks through the practice. The practice, when you show up for yourself, when you do a practice, for example, of mindfulness yourself for a period of time, you know what challenges come up. The same with yoga. When you've been doing yoga for quite a long time, you know what are the challenges. When you've been teaching it for a while, you know what are the challenges that people are experiencing, that you experienced yourself. What are the obstacles? What are the challenges? If you have not done that, you don't know it. It's the same with trauma. This is why the course, for example, is structured in that kind of way, that we practice, we talk about it, we learn it, we practice. There is a weekly buddy session that you meet with somebody else from the course. You talk about it. What is their experience? We do quite a lot of breakout rooms during the training. So it kind of unfolds. From my perspective and from the feedback that I had from others, it's extremely empowering because it really takes you on personal journey, personal development journey. So it's not just the kind of, theory and models learning, understanding of the mind level. It really allows you to go deeper, that when you come out on the other end, when you complete the course, for example, you are not the same person as you were when you first started. There is a deeper sense of connection. There is a deeper understanding. Often people will say to me that they teach in a different way because of their own practice. Their own practice has changed. Their understanding of the trauma-informed yoga approach has changed, and embodiment. And then that shows in the way that they teach, with the language that they use, with the practices that they use, with the pace and rhythm of their sessions. And also, one of the things that I hear a lot is that, they stop feeling like they're just winging it. It's like, I kind of know what I'm doing, but I don't really know. I'm kind of, making it up. And that's a sign that, yes, there is lots of information and knowledge that you have, but there hasn't been that shift into practicing for yourself and for others in a safe and supported environment, so then you can embody it. We all know practitioners who come and you just hear, that they know what they're saying. They lived it for long enough, they practiced it long enough that they know what they're saying, and they understand when you raise some concerns, they understand what you mean. This is obviously opposite to the kind of approach of, this way is the only way. What you're doing is wrong. This is the only way that you can do that. And, recent, for example, stuff around John Baptiste school that has come out, people being told, this is the way that you have to do it. All the other variations are not right. And of course, that's not true, because each one of us has got slightly different body. Each one of us has got slightly different needs, sometimes very different needs. Each one of us needs a slightly different approach. And again, we're coming back to that first point of having the tools, having the skills and understanding to meet your clients or your students where they are at. That collaboration, understanding, consent, helping somebody to develop the inner sense of agency. So this learning journey from, learning, understanding, studying, really important step, but also the practice for yourself, practice in your teaching, and then embodying it. It's a shift in identity. It's a shift in really being who we are. This is how change happens, and this is how we can support ourselves and our students in that more positive change, orienting towards well-being, orienting towards more stability, orienting towards more emotional resilience, more regulated nervous system. And as practitioners, the more we are in that space ourselves, the more I can respond, the more I know how I am, the more I know what my needs are, the more I feel empowered to do something about it, to meet those needs in a way that I need to meet them, the more I can do the same for my students. The more I support them and allow them to be themselves in a safe space just by being who I am. Sometimes people talk about walking your talk, and this is exactly what it means. It's just, I hold space for you, and I hold space for myself. And I am able to meet how you are because I have got practice of meeting myself in those places. So I hope that helps a little bit. I know that choosing a training is difficult. There are so many different trainings out there. And I think ultimately we need to think about what's going to support us as practitioners, what's going to take us further, because sometimes we can focus on qualifications a lot and we can sign up for things, but they don't necessarily take us on a journey of self-development, of deeper connection that helps us develop deeper sense of self-trust and confidence and practical skills that really will help us in our daily life, first of all, but also supporting our students. So, hope that makes sense. I'd love to hear your thoughts, if you've got any thoughts with regards to, what I was talking about, the trauma-informed yoga and embodied resilience and how it's different. If you have got any questions, tag me, let me know, and I will be very happy to answer your questions. And I wish you a really good day. Look after yourself. And I will also share the information about our training, the 80-hour Trauma-informed Yoga and Embodied Resilience teacher training and mentoring in the comments. If you are interested, book your free call with me and I'll be happy to speak with you. Take care of yourself. Bye for now.